All right, welcome everyone back to Wisdom Wednesday. Dr. Finegrit here. Today's episode is going to be on crystal celebrations. Here's some of my favorite crystal items that we sell here at Iconics. It's a Krosno brand of crystal from Poland. We import it and sell it here in the United States. These are more popular lines, which is the trophy, the decanter, and the barware. Those are three items that are crystal. 100%. Some of them are handmade and they are lead-free. So it's a great product, high-end, easy to sand carve, very attractive, top seller. So I'm going to go over those items on how to sand carve, some neat ideas on those. The other thing I want to cover is the roll format. We've been discussing quite a bit in all of our episodes the sheets. 10 inch by 12 inch. We come in 10, 25, 50, 100, and so on. So the sheets have been exposed or shown here quite a bit. Now, what you may not know is we sell it in roll format. So here we have the 10 inch by 12 sheets. Now we have a 10 inch wide by 25 or 100-foot roll. So I'll show how to use that material. It also comes in a 14 inch wide format and 26 and 52. So bigger formats, so it's easy to roll out. I made a little design here with your box. I just cut a slit and put my film inside the box, and I got the caps, put that in. So that's a little trick that I've used and suggested to customers to be able to use their box as their protective cover. And then you probably noticed this saran wrap roll. Okay, we're doing high-end crystal, which means you don't want to make a mistake. You don't want any overspray. You don't want any slight scratches from your metal inside the machine. So what I'm going to do is use the saran wrap or shrink wrap and wrap the whole item in that rather than using a ton of tape. Because using tape is going to be more time consuming. That tape's going to catch on all the dust and abrasive. So saran wrap's a great tool to have in your workshop. So I'm going to cover all these different items, and we did the R3 as well again. So it's a great film to work on compound curved surfaces. And we're going to work with all this today in our crystal celebration episode, and looking forward to working with you once again. So on the crystal trophy, it was too big to fit through my open armholes on the machine. The base was slightly too big. So what I did is I wrapped it in shrink wrap and then cut out a window, stretched the wrap, and then taped. Okay. The other item I did was a full bottle of whiskey. I'm going to put a fish on there and do a shading on there so you can see the color behind the fish really well. So you can do any kind of pressurized item, whether it's a champagne bottle, whiskey bottle, anything that's pressurized you can easily do in a sand carver due to that low frictional heat. And then I did the ball. I put a number of fish on there. We're going to sand carve this. And this technique, I just kind of moved the mask, positioned it, buckled it, and pieced it all in there. So it doesn't take as long as you think because it's easy to apply and reposition and apply. And then I did the decanter, and then we're going to do the glass. All four items go in the machine all at once. So I'm going to open my side door, place in my crystal vase. Be very careful when you handle these crystal items. All right, so all four items are in. We're ready to start sandblasting. So technique when you're doing curves, put your hand in there, have a good horizontal angle to hit. You hit the top area, remove it. If there are bubbles, now create a little cone effect. You go in the middle, create a little cone. Okay, we'll go across the whole fish here. Alright, now to give a little bit more of a wider edge, what I'll do is angle my glass and get a cut edge. That gets more of a white outline so it pops better. Slight angle, but move the glass, not the nozzle. So you have that sand always putting pressure on that stencil. Okay? You run across again, go a little bit deeper so it's a little wider. Okay? Now it's not too thick a crystal here, so I'm not going to go too deep. Go with half the thickness of your item. That's the integrity, up to half the thickness. Alright. So there's our crystal glassware item. Alright, so I have my hand in there the whole time. Easy to hold and move around. Now I'm going to go to a little more complex item. Alright, now here I'm going to actually, I didn't take this off, and that's on purpose, because I'm going to texturize this. Okay? Alright, now I'm going to hit the top fish. I do little circles to give it a smooth texture. And this one, go as deep as the line is wide. This is actually a 3mm material, so I'm not going to go too deep. Maybe a 32nd of an inch. Here's another fish. It's kind of neat, you just got to find fish as you go. I'm a fisherman by trade, but or I'd like to say I am, but I don't find fish this easy. So this is actually a little easier project to find fish. Alright, so moving across, you can see the depth based on the black shadow on my fish. The wider that black outline is, the deeper your carve. Here I found another fish. I'll glass this guy. Let's go a little bit deeper in this area because it's a little bigger area. You notice it better. Okay, and now move the bubbles. It goes deep, do my fish. Kind of fun, you just kind of move your glass item, keep your nozzle at one spot, maybe do a couple circles, give it a smooth texture. This one's a little bit wider as well. I call it a big lake. You can talk fish here. A big open lake like this. I can go as deep as I want because there's no resist right here. My nozzle is hitting right now. I could go all the way through the material. This material is a couple inches thick, so I'm not going to do that obviously, but if you really wanted to, you could. This gives you more dimension, more handle. Here I'm going to do a little bit of a bevel. Cut it out a little bit there. I'm going to use the 3mm resist. So I'm not hitting the resist right now, I'm hitting the glass. Well, it's burning up the resist, the one you be able to go as deep. So be selective on your images. Find a big open lake. And obviously with R3, it's really good for rivers, all that little detail areas. So there you have it. Now I have my hand over this so it's clear, but like I mentioned earlier, I want to frost it, give it a little more texture. Okay, so it stops in there, doesn't move around, so I don't lose any precious alcohol. Let's get a frost it quick. There, a low texture now on the stopper. There you go. Here's item number 2. Now I'm going to move on to the decanter. We're going to hold it in this angle. Start my upper left. Now they get a little heavy at times, so if you have a situation where you don't want to hold it the whole time in your hand, what I suggest there is putting a rubber mat down, so the rubber mat is not going to scratch the glass, and it gives you a little more handle in case you drop the item in your machine. So we just put like a floor mat in here, or I have people that use shelving paper a lot as well. You just buy that at Walmart, just regular old shelving paper. So any of those items work well if you want to keep the metal away from your crystal. The way it works is the hardness. So if your metal is harder than glass or crystal, it's going to scratch it. Now, if you lined your machine with brass or aluminum, a very soft metal, it's not going to scratch the glass. But most cabinets are not. They're lined with steel, which is harder than glass. So, yeah, rubber is going to be a perfect complement to your machine if you're doing a lot of crystal items. Again, it keeps you from scratching your item, and also, more importantly, in case you drop it, it's not going to break. So here we're just going a little bit deeper in the carving area, considering it's a high-end crystal decanter here. So I think that's about deep enough. And I'm going to go with my fish on the bottom. All right, I am blasting at 30 psi. That way I can control my blast a little more. Now, if I knew I was just going to go deep right away off the bat, I would have went higher. All right, but here, since it's a one-of-a-kind item, I want to take my time and get it looking good. I don't want any lift off, any blow off. So I get a nice control, and I'll get the top dollar for this item. So there you have it. There's my decanter. I got a good depth in there. I'm now going to go into a full whiskey bottle. Okay, see the liquor in there. Do the same thing here. Just make sure you're sealed really well. And it's a blown glass in this case, so you got to be careful you don't go too deep. Okay, because blown glass has different thicknesses throughout. So you could have an area where it's 1/8, and it could shorten down to like a 1/16 of an inch on the neck. So you got to be a little cautious. So in that case, I only do a couple passes. I'm not familiar with the bottle company. This one may be coming in handy to actually have a container underneath in case you do create a leak. You don't get it in the abrasive. You put like a shelf in here or something like that. Here I'm going to create a white outline. And from there, I'm going to start peeling. I'm going to do a 2-stage. A little extra treat for you. So there's my white outline on the fish. I'm going to have to pull it out to do the peel. All right, now I'm going to do my crystal. Notice I'm doing it upside down. The reason for that is that way I don't get abrasive inside the base. All the abrasive will stay down. So here we go. Use my left hand for video purposes. We're removing the membrane now. Now it does help to go a lower air pressure because it's not a race to get a nice crystal piece carved, right? Lower the air pressure, you have more control. There you have it. Ready to do one on the other side. Do the same thing there. We're going to hit this. There you go. All right, so this fish, I'm going to do a shading. So I don't want it pure white because I'll lose my details. So I'm going to get it gray. So the way you do that is run your pressure at 5 psi on your Sandcarving machine. The way to do it is you set it to like 10, and you step on the pedal, look at your gauge until it hits about 5. Okay? All right, so we're at 5. Now, basically what you're going to do is run your nozzle across, but instead of the image going white right away, it turns gray. There's a quick little way to do a 2-stage. So you got that different effect now. Okay? So it's kind of a gray instead of a white. Right? That's really that simple. Add more value. Now in this glass, I have a fish out here. Now this one, it's kind of out in space. Fish, they're in muddy water sometimes. I want to make it a little more creative. So what I'm going to do is kind of frost little bits and pieces. Just makes it more custom. So what I'm going to do here is same pressure. I'm just going to mist around my rim. Okay. Let's do the whole thing. All right. Just gives it a little different look, a little different texture, so that way it's not so average. Okay? You gotta look at it, it's got a little different look to it, right? It's like in muddy water now, not clear water anymore. Alright, so just a little way to accent your items. Customer may ask you, how do I get this kind of glass? It comes clear, obviously, right? But you might get that question, right? So it adds that conversation and more value. So there you have it. Shading on a whiskey bottle and a barber glass. All right, since it's crystal, it can be scratched with abrasive. So you want to make sure it's fully, the shroud knot came off without any issue. But if there's any remaining residue or abrasive, it's going to scratch. So what I do is a rinse. I just kind of run it through water, give it a good rinse before I do any peeling of the mask, okay? And you can soak it too. But if I rubbed it right now with abrasive, I could scratch it. So it's good to always give it a good rinse before you peel off the stencil material with crystal. Here's a wrap on our crystal celebrations. The first item we did today was the trophy. The important thing here is it's a larger item that goes in your machine, so make sure you wrap it either with the stretch wrap or tape, or just be careful when you handle it, because crystal, even though it's a hard material like glass, it could scratch. And the scratches come from the grit, okay? So keep the grit off the piece. So blow it off with an air gun or rinse it off in the sink after blasting, just to make sure all that grit is off the mask before you peel. All right. Now, some of the other items that you think scratch, like your fingernails, that will not scratch. Fingernails are softer than crystal, so you cannot scratch with your fingernail. You cannot scratch with brass or aluminum. Those will not scratch. Now, but the grit will. So that's the number one component that does scratch crystal, and I hate for you to do a nice professional display like this and have a slight scratch, because most people do light them from the LED and a scratch will be present there. So that's the important factor on crystal and glass, for that matter. Acrylic does scratch pretty easily, so I won't go there. The other items we did was the crystal glass. We did a shading effect. We created like muddy water, so it looks more realistic. We don't have many clear lakes in Minnesota, so that's kind of a more realistic look. And it's also more unique, right? You get a kind of a shadow, a little bit of a fogginess in certain areas. Your customer is going to also feel a texture on it instead of a smooth feel. So it makes it very unique and high-end as well, for that factor. So that's that. And then we have the decanter. When it's filled, it highlights the carving really well. You get the white, because that's carved deeper. In the fish area, those areas I actually went about halfway up my finger. That's the depth that I did. All right. So that's a good way to get carving depth. And the other thing I also like to show on this is the detail. Every little point is shown. So that's your detail capability with sand carving. So crystal is looking highlighted very well with your sand carving. One thing I didn't really show is the award side, and that's where you put the carving on the back side of your crystal, so the image is three-dimensional. And I know I have a couple customers right now doing that and I had questions. And then the other item we did was the filled item. So it could be pressurized, it could be open, it could be full. But here we are with a two-stage effect as well. You got the outlines carved deep, and then we did shading on the inside area. So it makes it highlight, makes it pop a little bit better. So again, especially with LED lights. If you're in a bar area, trying to present it to your bar owner, bring an LED light with you, highlight those glassware items, get those glassware items wet, like we talked about in other episodes. You can show them how the image remains when it's wet even. But also with these items, you highlight that carving. So if I was a bar owner and saw like a bottle of very fine scotch highlighted, I'd be more apt to pick that one over another just because I see it, okay? So then you can't forget the topper. Okay, I went really deep in that area as well. More dimension in the fish. You can look at certain angles and see how it's actually right in the glass. And I did a full wrap. And the one tip there was this this was the original artwork. As you can see here, all these fish were in line, right, in the original artwork. Now, the beauty of photoresist film is I can maneuver the mask to conform. So here I moved the fish going this direction, that one that direction, right, and made it kind of a smiley face. And that's just by moving the mask to manipulate on the curve. So that's where it started and that's where it ended. So even threw a little fish on top. So there's a good way to add more value to your product, more decorating space. I call it high real estate. So those are really good methods to offer to your customers. Now, we're going to cover more. Next week is more of a home gating experience. We're going to cover some items that you would typically bring outside. We're going to go to that area once again. So whether it's barware items again, we're going to get into some different shapes and sizes, and we're going to cover that more in detail. So we're looking forward to that. One last thing is a tip of the week. I'm going to start doing that at the end of the video. And the tip today is how to maintain your machine at the end of your day. Okay? When you're working with sandblasting, you're going to be blasting between 20 up to 60 psi throughout your day. And that depends on your mask thickness. Now, if you're blasting at 60 psi throughout your day, you blast to a pound a minute when you're blasting, but also when you get done, let's say you're blasting one crystal piece and you're done, but then you might go back to it in 10 minutes. You leave the pot pressurized. Okay, that's very critical. Don't depressurize your pot every time you leave the machine. Only do it at the end of your day or when you need to refill the pot. And the reason for that is when you depressurize at a higher PSI, the abrasion will come out the system really quick and it's going to actually blast backwards. So you'll actually see grit coming back into air fittings and that could create problems down the road. So before you depressurize at higher PSI, just lower your pressure a little bit and depressurize. And that's going to create less stress on those air fittings down below. So again, it depends on how often you blast, but just depressurize the pot at the end of your day, and your fittings, your regulator, all those areas are going to stay intact for a longer period. So again, another way to extend the life on your fittings and parts. So until next week, lots of confidence and have a blast.
You got there, Darren. Oh, that looks awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Let's see if it tastes as good on the inside as it looks on the outside.
Cheers.
Cheers.